everyone, I'm Ken Verderami, and welcome to another edition of the Ultimate Steel Shooter, where we talk about all things and only things Steel Challenge. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode here. Before we get started, as always, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed to the channel. For those of you who are already subscribers, thank you very much for doing that. And if you're not a subscriber but you like this content, please hit the subscribe button. And everybody hit the like button if you like this particular video, and comment and share with your friends. All those things are big deals to help this channel to continue to grow, and I can keep bringing this free content to you guys. All right, so I had a request last week from one of the viewers to talk about the new USPSA rule changes that just went into effect earlier this year, and what effect, if any, they have on Steel Challenge. So I was going to do a rules video anyway here, talk about some other things related to Steel Challenge rules. So this seemed like a good idea. I might as well do it all at once. All right, so I'm going to go over the couple of rule changes and what I think they do or do not do as far as Steel Challenge goes. And then I want to cover some other specific topics related to rules and how people apply them and things like that. All right, so the first rule change I saw was that they raised the weight limit in single stack from 43 ounces to 45 ounces. Okay, I know in the world of single stack, a lot of guys were having trouble making weight, and they were doing funky things like using really thin wood grips and all sorts of things. Okay, so now that you've got 2 extra ounces, you don't have to do that. I don't think this particular rule really has any material effect on shooting Steel Challenge. So the fact that the guns can be 2 ounces heavier, you know, that's great for those of you that happen to be shooting a single stack. Not a lot of people shoot that, quite frankly, so I don't think that one's a huge deal. The next two have to do with both single stack, carry optics, and production. And the first one is magnets are now allowed on your belt in order to hold magazine pouches. Okay. If you shoot USPSA, you know, that's kind of a big deal. Other divisions allow you to use magnets. Production, carry optics, single stack specifically do not. And so for certain types of stages, having a magnetic mag top was a big deal, and you couldn't do that. Okay, so does this have any real effect on Steel Challenge? I don't think so. I mean, I actually don't, when I'm shooting centerfire divisions, I don't put any magazines on my belt. I carry them in a pouch, the 5 magazines, like I do for rimfire, and set it on the table. And I just started doing that a long time ago. Mainly, I don't like carrying all that extra weight and stuff if I don't have to. Right? If you think about it, you got 5 magazines for 5 runs, and maybe an extra one in case you have an issue. You've got, you know, if you're production, you've got 10 rounds in it. If you're carry optics, right, you get even more, maybe 15. Right? You're looking at, you know, 60, 70 rounds of ammunition you carry on your belt. That's a lot of weight. And you're not reloading, or at least you shouldn't be reloading in Steel Challenge. And so having magazines on your belt, I don't know what that does for you. Okay, if you have a issue in a run, you know, maybe it's easier to grab magazine off your belt and reload and finish the run. But let's face it, if you have an issue that requires you to reload, either you ran out of bullets or you had a gun jam or something, that run's a throwaway run, which is why we get an extra run. And so materially doesn't really matter. So I'm going to tell you that allowing you having a magnet on your belt doesn't mean much for Steel Challenge. The next one, this was kind of a big deal in USPSA, is for those same 3 divisions, you know, your holster and your magazines, right, could not be any more forward than your hip bone. And there was a diagram in the appendix that showed you how far forward they could be, and you couldn't do that. That's kind of a big deal. Well, they've eliminated that diagram, and no longer, just like all the other divisions, do you have a restriction on where your holster goes and where your magazine goes. Okay, so this one has a little bit of effect. What it means is you can now play around with your holster placement if you shoot carry optics and production, whereas before you didn't. And the reason why that may be of interest is that if you shoot multiple divisions, right, you shoot limited or open, you were probably having your gun forward of your hip bone, and then you had to readjust it at different positions for carry optics and production. Well, now you don't have to worry about that. You can pick a single position for your holster and shoot it across all the different divisions. That seems like that might be useful. I will tell you, I don't think it's that big a deal, particularly if you've been training a long time. You're used to having your holster in a certain position, whether it's behind the hip bone or in front, doesn't make any difference. But that rule's now relaxed, and so now you can go, if you want to, you can pick a single position for all your guns and put the holster in one position. So that's kind of nice. A couple other ones, they now allow in the waistband holsters where they didn't do that before. Again, you know, maybe some people are shooting Steel Challenge as a way to practice concealed carry, and so they like to train and shoot matches with their in the waistband holster. They couldn't do that before, now they can. That's nice, but if you're, quite frankly, if you're what I'll call a serious competitive Steel Challenge shooter, you're not shooting with in the waistband holster. You have a external competition holster, so that rule doesn't really affect anything as well. And then the last one, which is probably causing the most uproar in the USPSA world, is you are now allowed to have a weapons mounted light on your gun in all divisions. Before, that was not allowed. Okay, so there's a lot of controversy, discussion about is this a good thing, a bad thing, does it give a competitive advantage, things like that. Again, I don't think it makes that big a deal. If you shoot a steel gun like a Tanfoglio or a CZ or something, those guns are already tremendously heavy. The last thing you're going to do is add a flashlight to the front of it and make it even more nose heavy and more unbalanced, right? Not doing that. You know, if you're a polymer gun shooter, yeah, now you can add, you know, 4 or 5 ounces to the front of the gun and maybe make it a little heavier and feel better. Again, I don't think it's that big a deal that this, you know, it's not, I don't think it's going to be a big game changer, right? I mean, as you know, I'm not a big fan that equipment makes you a better shooter. I mean, right? If you've watched my channel or listened to anything I've had to say over time, you know that one of the things I tell people all the time is that if you want to become a better shooter, right, don't buy new equipment, buy more bullets, right? The road to Steel Challenge shooting greatness is paved with bullets, not a new holster, a new magazine, a new magwell, a new gun, or any of that kind of stuff, okay? I've been shooting the same rimfire gun, a Browning Buckmark Camper that I bought used since I started shooting Steel Challenge 8 years ago. It's the only gun I've ever had, right? Simple, cheap. I've made some obviously upgrades to it, but I've never changed guns. It works, and it's plenty good enough, focusing on technique, not on equipment, to get better. So you can add a flashlight if you want. Those of you that are shooting with your carry guns, law enforcement guys, they get all that. They like shooting with the same gun that they carry at work. It has a flashlight on it. Great. You're now allowed to do that. You don't need to take it off or have a separate gun. That's great. But again, the serious competitors who want to just focusing on the sport, you know, adding a flashlight, I don't think is going to do much for you either way. So again, not a big deal. So those are the major changes that I saw from the February 21 board meeting where they put out all the new rule updates. They're basically equipment changes. There's not any real material, technique, or those kind of things, or procedural changes that would make probably a much bigger deal on the competition side. All right, so enough about that. Hopefully that answers that question and anything else you guys may have about that. If not, put some comments down and let me know if you got other questions about that. Maybe I missed something that you guys find more relevant in those new rule changes, but I don't really think they're a big deal. What I do want to talk about in the rules are things that go towards procedures and techniques, because these I think are a much bigger deal. So I'll tell you right up front, some of this is going to sound like whining and ranting, and I don't mean it that way, but I've witnessed some of this stuff, and I really think it is a big deal, and I think it's worth talking about, because if we don't talk about it, you're never going to see any changes to it. Okay, and the first one is if you're a rimfire shooter, it's this: are you pointing at the flag or not at the start of the run? Okay, we can argue all day about, hey, should the flag position be more defined in the rules? It says kind of about this far away and about this high. It doesn't give any specifics, and it leaves the match to do all sorts of things. But the point is that should be, whatever they said it's the same for everybody in the match, so that shouldn't be a competitive advantage. The issue comes in is when shooters are kind of nudging a bit or cheating, whatever word you want to use, and they're not pointed directly at the flag. They're maybe pointed a little higher, maybe they're pointed a little left, a little right, things like that to try to get that advantage, particularly on certain stages, right? Smoke and Hope is a great example of one of those. Roundabout, Showdown, those 3 stages, which are lightning fast stages, you sometimes see people not really following the rules, and quite frankly, this is up to the RO. Now, we could talk about personal integrity and whether you should do it or not. Okay, people are what they are. If you want to do that, I can't stop you, but as an RO, you should call out that person every single time. It's pretty obvious if they're not pointing at the flag, and get them to point back at the flag. The problem we have is in major matches in particular, right? ROs are not professional officials, and sometimes they're intimidated by when a top name shooter shows up at their stage, and sometimes they get away with things that someone who's not may not get away with. And the problem I have with that is I've actually seen that occur, not when I was an RO, but when I'm actually shooting on a squad, that everybody may not be treated the same. So I would tell you, if you're an RO out there, you need to be locked down on the rules. Everybody points at that flag. I don't care if you're the #1 shooter in the world and you got 10 world championships behind you, or if you're a guy who just picked up a gun yesterday and doesn't know the first thing about the sport. The rules are the rules for everybody. Okay, so I think that is a kind of one of those things that's not talked about much, but is a bigger deal than you might believe. The other one, and I've seen this happen as well, and it's kind of infuriating, and that is the subject of DQs for ADs, accidental discharges. I've actually experienced where more than once, not at a major, but at a level 1 match, where a shooter clearly executed an AD, right? The gun went off, they were not pointed at a target, and it was not actively in the middle of a run. Clear AD by the rules, and after the RO DQ'd him, the person talked to the match director, who happened to be a friend of his, and all of a sudden, he was allowed to continue the match, right? That is a clear violation of the rules in every way, shape, or form, and unfortunately, there's not much you can do about that, right? What I do about that is I just vote with my feet. I refuse to go back and shoot those matches, and I would encourage you all to consider doing the same thing if you witness that, right? That the rules are the rules. The ADs are, it's pretty obvious when someone has an accidental discharge. It is what it is, and you go home. I mean, I've been disqualified for an accidental discharge at a match, not at a major, but at a level 1. Pack my stuff, unload, show clear, pack my stuff up, I'm done. That's just the way it is, okay? You need to own that stuff and move on. And then the last one, and I've experienced this for me at a major. Luckily, the match director had a reasonable, or it got adjudicated in my favor, but I've seen this over and over and over again, and that is what constitutes a hit on a plate. You would think that's not that big a deal, but apparently a lot of people struggle with what's a hit. And the other thing they struggle with is multiple hits that are right next to each other and trying to determine if it's 2 hits or just 1 hit, okay? And I'll tell you what happened to me. It was at a major 2 years ago. I was shooting Pendulum, shot the first 2 runs, and then on the 3rd run, after I complete the run, the RO says, "Oh, you missed plate number 1, left hand 12 plate." And I said, and I know for a fact I was dead center when I pulled that trigger. That's the plate I draw to. There was no way I missed that plate. Okay, So I said, no, I'm pretty sure I hit it. And he goes, well, no, I didn't see it. You want to go look at it? Yes. Unload, show, clear. We walked down there, and I could see 3 distinct marks. He looked at it and said, he's looking, and I only see 2 there. And I was trying to explain to him, I said, you don't look at the black because the black's everywhere. Look for these little tiny white dots in the center of a black mark. That indicates the hit on the rimfire. And I could clearly see 3 tiny little white dots. Now, to be honest with you, they were about that far apart, all 3 of them, but they were clearly there. I tried and tried. He said, no. I said, hey, can we call the match director over? He said, sure. Match director came over, walked up to the stage, got literally within about 5 feet. We were talking about what the issue was and he got within 5 feet of the plate and he goes, I see 3 hits, 1, 2, 3. I mean, it was that quick. And the RO was stunned and he goes, what? And he goes, look. And he pointed out the same thing. He said, these 3 little tiny dots, they indicate 3 hits. Don't just look at the black splatter. You got to look for those little white dots. That's how I always try to look for hits. Is look for that little tiny white mark as opposed to just a black splatter, because as the bullets go on top of each other, it's not, you could easily look like one mark when in fact it can be 2 hits. The other thing is edge hits, of course, right? Those are the biggest controversy. The thing I will tell you about edge hits is you got to look for pure black, right? If you see any white that's over the top of it, clearly it was painted. It may not have been painted completely, but it was clearly painted over already. And if it was a bullet spatter, it would be black. It would cover that white and it'd be obvious. But a lot of times the ROs don't necessarily see that. They see a little tiny black streak, but they don't think it's enough of a mark, and it doesn't need to be very much. And then my biggest pet peeve about that is when an RO says, I didn't hear anything, so that edge hit is not a hit. Remember, the rules are very specific. Visual evidence of a hit is how you determine it. Not did you hear it, not did you see it. Okay? You can be blind and dumb, you have your eyes closed, and not hear anything during the shooting and still go down after the fact and identify hits, because it's visual evidence of a hit is the only thing you're supposed to be using as an RO, not the fact that you didn't hear anything or I didn't see any splatter on the berm. Well, you don't have to, right? You may have had a little tiny sliver of that bullet hit the plate, so you won't hear anything. And maybe because of the angle or whatever, you didn't see it hit the berm either, or it was far enough away. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is visual evidence of the hit. So please remember, if you're ROing, that's your only criterion for determining a hit. And when in doubt, unload, show, clear, go down there and check it out. Okay, it's not that difficult. And then ask for opinion from somebody else. No shame in asking for opinion. All right, guys, I think that's probably enough there on the rules. I don't want to get too wrapped around that, but just be smart about this kind of stuff when you're ROing. If you're unsure of the rules, pull them out, read them, refresh yourself, ask the match director if you're unsure, and then just do the right thing there. All right, so remember, if you're interested in my dry fire training system, you can check that out at steelshootbanners.com. We've got all the Steel Challenge 8 stages there in banner form. We also got USPSA banners, we got USPSA classifier stages, and we've got the Glock Shooting Sports Federation 3 official stages as well, all in banner form. 50 to 60, almost 70 different banners to pick from, depending on what sport and what training you want to do. It's all there on the website. And then don't forget my 2 books, Do You Feel the Need for Speed and The Game Within the Game, the only 2 books on the market dedicated 100% to the sport of Steel Challenge. Those are available at Amazon. I'll link everything down in the description so you can find them easier. And of course, if you're a rimfire shooter and you're looking to get anything, please go to tandemcross.com via the affiliate link that I provide in the description. That'll help the channel out as well. We get a small percentage of any sales, and they have everything you could ever possibly think of in the world of rimfire, from full-up guns down to the smallest little thing you might possibly want to replace or upgrade your gun. So please check all that out for us if you're in the market for that kind of stuff. And of course, as always, remember, slowing down is never the right answer. Never. You need to learn to see faster.